Calculation of cost of equity. What's Simon doing now? Calculation of cost of equity. Now, dear friends, basically this is People's Advocate Srimannarayana Malala, and People's Advocate Srimannarayana Malala is objective is to help the people globally, locally, international, nationally, internationally. This People's Advocate will help you during the course of any marginalized people having any issues, and they need a legal support. This People's Advocate will help you. So this is what People's Advocate. Now People's Advocate came. This People's Advocate came in front of you to discuss about the subject matter of advanced financial management. And you may ask that how it will help to me. Yes, the moment you have a knowledge, you can do anything in the world. The knowledge will drive in the society, knowledge driving the economy now. That's why this knowledge will help you to stabilize your security, stabilize your return, stabilize your money. Now I am discussing about security valuation. So guys, please understand and follow me, and you will be able to get the knowledge. The knowledge will help you to run your life well. So now this is People's Advocate Srimannarayana Malala is discussing about the security valuation. See, during the security evaluation, already in the part one, we discussed a lot about security evaluation and some formulas. Now I am going to do advanced level of the security evaluation formulas and discussion during the course of that. So that will help you to buy the stock here and there and then sell the stock and gain the money. It will help you to gain the money. So what I am going to discuss, if you understand, you can independently purchase the stock and buy and sell, you gain the money from the market, so that it will help to reach the people, and it will help to them. Okay friends, let's go back to discussion. Calculation of the cost of equity. In case of the floating cost, is given, the floating cost or cost associated with the issue of new equity. Example: brokerage commission, underwriting expense, etc. If issue cost is given in question, we will take P0 net of issue cost, net proceeds. If floating cost is expressed in percentage, P0 1 minus F is equal D1 by KE minus GC. If floating cost is expressed in absolute amount, P0 minus F is equal D1 by KE minus GC. See, if floating cost expressed in percentage, calculation of cost of equity, calculation of cost of equity, calculation of cost of equity, KE. In case of floating cost, in case of floating cost, in case of floating cost is given, floating cost is given. If the floating cost is expressed in percentage, if floating cost is expressed in percentage, P0 minus 1 minus F is equal to D1 divided by KE minus GC. P0 1 minus F is equal to d1 by ke minus gc. P0 is equal to 1 minus f is equal d1 by ke minus gc. So if floating cost expressed in absolute amount, if floating cost is expressed is expressed if floating cost is expressed in absolute amount, in absolute in absolute amount, in absolute amount, in absolute amount, p0 minus f, that is equal to d1 divided by ke minus gc, ke minus gc. Note, ke of new equity will always be greater than ke of existing equity. The flotation cost is only applicable in case of new equity and not on existing or retained earnings. Understand, my dear friend? This is people's advocate coming and telling in front of you to help the marginalized people. Understand, my YouTube watch viewer. Yes, you will understand surely. Cost of equity of new equity will be always be greater than the cost of existing equity. How? The flotation cost, the flotation cost is only applicable in case of new equity and not on existing equity or retained earnings. Understand, my dear friends? See, return on equity and book value per share. See, EPS is equal to, like this also we can do. EPS, usual EPS is what? Earnings available to equity shareholder divided by total number of equity shares is equal to EPS. But also EPS is equal to book value per share into ROE. Book value per share into ROE. EPS is equal to book value per share into ROE, my dear friend. My dear friend. Now, the MPS, how it will be derived in the two-way of scenario, I'll let you know. MPS is equal to 1. Earnings available to equity shareholder divided by total number of equity shares EPS, and the PE ratio MPS divided by EPS. MPS by EPS. See, what is meant by BVPS and ROE? BVPS, equity shareholder fund divided by total number of equity shares is equal to book value per share. In case of ROE, earnings available to equity shareholder divided by equity shareholder fund, then ROE will come. See, EPS is equal to earnings available to earnings available for equity shareholders divided by total number of equity shares. Total number of equity shares. And BVPS, book value per share, and ROE, return on required rate of return. BVPS, equity shareholders fund divided by equity equity shareholders equity equity shareholders fund divided by total number of equity shares. Total number of equity shares. Required rate of return. Earnings available for equity shareholders. Earnings available for equity shareholders divided by equity shareholders fund. Earnings available for equity shareholders divided by equity shareholders fund, then ROE will come. Equity shareholders fund. Equity shareholders fund. The concept of PE ratio at which dividend payout will have no effect on the value of the share. Where when R is equal to KE, dividend payout ratio will not affect value of share. Example, if R is equal to 10 percentage, then K is equal to 10 percentage, and K is equal to 1 by P ratio, and then 0.10 is equal to 1 by P ratio. P ratio is equal to 0.10 divided by 0.1, 1 divided by 0.10, then 10% only, no? The P ratio is equal to 10 times, no? Am I right? See, the present value of the market price less than the actual price, then overvalue. Better to sell. If present value of the market price is greater than the actual market price, actual market price 100, but present value market price is 200, then see, present value of the market price less than the actual market price. Actual present value of the market price 100. Actual market price is 90. Then you sell it. Present value of the market price is 100. Actual market price is 90. Undervalued by. Present value of the market price is equal to actual market price correctly valued. Either you can take buy or sell decision. Now, my dear friend, I would like to go behind that. Holding period return. See, the holding period return will speaks like this: P1 minus P0 plus D1 by P0. What is this? Holding period return. Holding period return is equal to P1 minus P0 plus D1 divided by P0. Holding period return P1 minus P0 plus D1 by P0. See, it's simply this. What happened? One element is P1 minus P0 by P0, and another one element is D1 by P0. Then combined denominator will be P0. Then numerator will be P1 minus P0 plus D1. Then that is equal to holding period return. This is what, my dear friend, I would like to talk more on about the returns, the capital gain yield return, dividend yield return. Capital gain yield divided by capital gain yield divided by return, dividend yield divided by return. Simply understand? You are not understood, huh? Hello, friend, my dear friend, are understanding? Understanding? Okay. I thought you will understand. Surely you will understand. Holding period return P1 minus P0 divided by P0 is nothing but capital gain yield divided by return. Capital gain yield divided by capital gain yield divided by return. This is nothing but P1 minus P0 by P0. Now, dividend yield divided by return. Dividend yield divided by return. This is nothing but D1 by P0. D1 by P0. See, my dear friends, we are going to the more conceptual problems, you understand. In case the multi-stage dividend discount model, if growth is more than cost of equity and variable growth rate model, the growth model is used under the assumption of the growth is constant. When more than one growth rate is given, then we will use the concept of greater than KE, growth is equal to greater than KE. A firm may be a temporarily experience a growth rate what exceeds the required rate of it on firm's equity. But no firm can maintain this relationship indefinitely. See, the value of dividend paying firm that is experiencing temporarily high growth. Hello, my dear friend, you too, what you are you understanding? If you have a doubt, you kindly approach me. My mobile number 9677205265, 9677205265, 9677205265. What the People's Advocate Srimannaramalla is talking, a firm may be, a firm may temporarily experience a growth rate that exceeds the required rate of return on firm's equity, but no firm can maintain this relationship indefinitely. The value of dividend, a paying firm that is experiencing temporarily a high growth, that is equal present value of the dividend expected during the high growth period plus the present value of the constant growth value of the firm at the end of the high growth period. My dear friend, understanding? Value of dividend paying firm that is experiencing temporarily high growth is equal to present value of dividend expected during the high growth period plus present value of the constant growth value of the firm at the end of the high growth period. So that's why what is the formula for this? Multi-stage dividend discount model. Multi-stage dividend discount model. Multi-stage dividend discount model. Multi-stage dividend discount model. If growth is greater than cost of equity, the variable growth model variable variable growth model value is equal to d1 divided by 1 plus ke whole power 1 plus d2 divided by 1 plus ke whole square plus dn divided by 1 plus ke whole power n plus pn divided by 1 plus ke whole power n. When 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 pn is equal to dn 1 plus gc 1 plus gc divided by ke minus gc. See, when pn is equal to dn 1 plus gc divided by ke minus gc, the people's advocate Sriman Narayana Malala is expressing the what is his contention. The value of dividend paying firm that is experiencing temporarily high growth is equal present value of dividends expected during high growth period. Value of dividend paying firm that is experiencing temporarily high growth is equal present value of dividends expected during high growth period, present value of the constant growth value of the firm at the end of the high growth period. At the end of the high growth period, value is equal, already I said value is equal d1 divided by 1 plus ke whole power n, d2 divided by 1 plus ke whole square, and plus 3 so on dn divided by 1 plus ke whole power n. Whereas pn is equal dn into 1 plus gc divided by ke minus gc. Friend, now let's go for IRR technique growth model. IRR, IRR technique, CHNIPUE. IRR technique and growth model. IRR technique and growth model. IRR is the discount rate that makes the present value of the project. IRR is the discount rate. IRR is the discount rate that makes the present value of the project estimated cash flows equal to the present value of the project estimated cash flows, cash outflows. At IRR discount rate is equal or greater than the present value of inflow, that is equal present value of outflow. See, IRR speaks present value of inflow is equal present value of outflow. That's called IRR. IRR, the net present value of inflows is equal to the value of investment. It means the present value of inflows is equal present value of outflows. The IRR is also a discount rate for which NPV a project is equal to 0. IRR technique is used when the cost of equity is missing in the question. IRR is equal lower rate plus lower rate net present value divided by higher rate net present value minus higher rate and net present lower rate net present value minus higher rate net present value into difference in the rate. IRR is equal IRR is equal to lower rate plus lower rate NPV divided by lower rate NPV minus higher rate NPV, lower rate NPV minus higher rate NPV, higher rate NPV into difference in rate. Difference in rate. IRR is equal to lower rate plus lower rate NPV minus higher rate NPV. Okay. First, IRR is equal lower rate plus lower rate NPV divided by lower rate NPV minus higher rate NPV into difference ratio. That's called L1 plus L1 divided by L1 rate minus lower rate minus higher rate into difference rate. So that's the IRR formula, my dear friend. See, my dear friend, the price at the end of each year, the price at the end of each year, see the price at the end of each year, price at the end of each year, the price at the end of each year, P0 is equal to P1 plus D1 divided by 1 plus ke whole power 1. What, my dear friend? P0 is equal to P1 plus D1 divided by 1 plus ke whole power 1. And P1 is equal to P2 plus D2 divided by 1 plus ke whole square whole to the power of 1. In case P2, always 1 plus k whole power 1 only, don't worry. P1 P0 is equal P1 plus D1, whereas P1 is equal P2 plus D2, whereas P2 is equal P3 D3, whereas P3 is equal P4 D4, divided by 1 plus k whole power 1 will come. Okay, now for your understanding purpose again I'll tell you. P2 is equal P3 plus D3 divided by 1 plus k whole power 1. P3 is equal P4 plus D4 divided by 1 plus ke whole power 1. P4 is equal P5 plus D5 divided by 1 plus ke whole power 1. Likewise, my dear friend, if positive growth, then P0 is equal, if positive growth, then P0 is equal D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. Negative growth. Negative growth. Negative growth. If positive growth, if positive growth, if positive growth, if positive growth, then P0 is equal D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. If positive growth, then P0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. P0 is equal to D0 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. If negative growth, then if positive growth, P0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. P0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G, whereas a positive growth. If negative growth, then if negative growth, if negative, if negative growth, if negative growth, if negative growth, then P0 P0 is equal D0 1 minus G divided by Ke plus G. If growth is positive, D0 1 plus G divided by Ke minus G. If growth is negative, D0 1 minus G divided by Ke plus G. If EPS greater than DPS, then retention is positive, growth is positive. If EPS is less than DPS, growth is negative. See, earning price, earning per share is more than dividend per share. Definitely positive. If earning per share is less than dividend per share, then retention is negative only. EPS is equal to DPS, then no retention. G is equal to 0. See, valuation using H model. Now, I'll talk about valuation using the H model. Valuation using the H model. Valuation using valuation using the H model. Valuation using the H model. The earnings growth of most firms does not abruptly change from a high rate. See, the earnings growth of most of firms does not abruptly change from a high rate to a low rate as in the two-stage model, but tends to a decline over the time as competitive forces come into play. The H model approximates the value of the firm, assuming that an initially high rate of growth decline linearly over a specified period. The formula for this approximately is P0, valuation of the H model. P0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus growth GL divided by Ke minus GL plus D0 into H into GS minus GL divided by Ke minus GL. What is this GL? What is this Ke minus GL? You need to understand. See, the overall P0 is equal to D1 into 1 plus GL plus D0 into H GS minus GL divided by Ke minus GL. Ke minus GL. See, again listen, P0 is equal D1 plus, sorry, B0 is equal to B0 into 1 plus GL plus d0 into h into gs minus gl divided by cost of equity minus gl. p0 is equal to d0 into 1 plus gl plus d0 into h into gs minus gl divided by ke minus gl. Here h is equal t by 2, half life in years of high growth period is equal to half life half life half life in years half life in years of high growth period of high growth period high growth period high growth period. T is equal length of the high growth period. T is equal length of high growth period. 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 GS is equal to short term growth rate. Short term growth rate. GL long term growth rate. Long term growth rate. R is equal to required rate of return. See what I said to you, P0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus long term growth plus D0 into half అంటే time into short term growth minus long term growth divided by ke minus gl. Understand, my dear friend? Now, this is the valuation using H model. H means half time, half year growth period. Then P0 is equal D0 into 1 plus long term growth plus D0 into half time into long term growth minus short term growth or short term growth minus long term growth divided by ke minus long term growth. Friend, understood? No? Now we'll talk about dividend coverage ratios and interest coverage ratios. See, interest coverage ratio is equal earnings before interest and tax divided by interest. Interest coverage ratio formula, interest coverage ratio, interest coverage ratio is equal to earnings before interest and tax, EBIT divided by EBIT divided by interest, EBIT divided by interest. Earnings before interest and tax divided by interest. That's called interest coverage ratio. Whereas a preference dividend coverage ratio, PAT, profit after tax divided by preference dividend. Preference dividend coverage ratio. Preference dividend preference dividend coverage ratio. Preference dividend coverage ratio is equal profit after tax divided by preference dividend. Preference dividend. Preference dividend. Note, higher the better the ratios. Now I'll talk about equity dividend coverage ratio. Equity equity dividend equity dividend coverage ratio. Equity dividend coverage ratio is equal to profit after tax, PAT, minus preference dividend, preference dividend, PAT, profit after tax minus preference dividend, dividend divided by dividend payable to equity shareholders. 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 Note, higher the better. These ratios indicates the surplus profit left after meeting all fixed obligation. Higher the better. These ratios indicate the surplus profit left after meeting all the fixed obligation. Cash flow based model, cash flow based model, free cash flows. Free cash flows for the firm without any disturbance to debentures, preference shares, and equity shares. Discount rate is equal to KO, VF is equal to value of the firm. The value of equity is equal to value of the firm minus present market value of the debt. Cash flow based model, cash flow base model, cash flow base model, cash flow base model, cash flow base model, free cash flows, free cash flows, free cash flows. See, the free cash flows, one is free cash flows for the firm without any distribution to debentures, preference shares, and equity shares. Another one is free cash flow for the equity after distribution to debentures and preference shares and long-term loans. The discount rate is equal KO, this is KU. Value of the firm, the value of equity. See, there are two things. Free cash flows free cash flows for the firm free cash flows for the firm without without any distribution without any distribution without any distribution to debentures to debentures to debentures preference shares without debentures and preference shares and equity shares. Preference shares, debentures, preference shares, and equity shares. Discount rate is equal to KO. Discount rate is equal to KO. And VF is equal to value of firm. Value of firm. Value of firm. And VE is equal to VF is equal to value of firm. And VE is equal to value of firm minus market value of debt. Value of equity is equal to value of firm minus market value of debt. VE is equal to VE is equal to value of firm minus market value of debt. Whereas FC, FF, FCFE. Now already we talked about FCFF model. Now we are going to talk about FCFE model. FCFE model. FCFE model. In FCFE model, free cash flows, free cash flows, free cash flows after free cash flows for the equity free cash flows for the equity after distribution after distribution after distribution after distribution to debentures after distribution to debentures preference shares long term loans long term loans. Then the discount rate is equal to KE. Discount rate is equal to KE. Discount rate is equal to discount rate is equal to KE. Then value of equity VE is equal to value of equity. Value of equity. VE is equal to value of equity. VE is equal to value of value of equity. Friends, now we are going to revise. The revise the earning before interest, tax, and depreciation EBITDA minus depreciation and amortization because of non-cash flows, and EBT and less tax and no PAT. Then add depreciation, less interest on working capital, less increase in working capital, less capital expenditure. This is called free cash flow for the firm. Let's calculate FCFF. Before that, we'll take just few minutes. ಯಾರು ಯಶವಂತ್ ಬೋಪಣ್ಣ 2864 బుక్రా పొక్కర హ్యాండ్కి ఏమైంది యార్ ఊరి హలో సార్ హాయ్ సార్ డౌట్ సార్ మాస్టారు ఒరే అబ్బా నిన్నేరా అయ్యా సోది మాస్టారు అబ్బా చూసి హలో ఒక్కసారి మాట్లాడురా బా కాల్ మీ డియర్. స్వాతి వయ్యే స్వంత బొప్పన 2864 హ్యాండ్కి ఏమైంది. Okay, whatever you feel, let it be. I am People's Advocate Srimannarayana Malala. I'm happy to whatever I know, I'll talk. Whatever you feel, I'll take positive. Thank you. If anyone such a way they want to communicate, you just call me back. My name is People's Advocate Srimannarayana Malala. 9677 is my mobile number. అబ్బా! 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 వాట్ ఏ కమ్యూనికేషన్ అబ్బా పీపుల్. హలో సార్, హాయ్ సార్, డౌట్ సార్, మాస్టారు. అరే అయ్యా చూసి ఎదవ. అబ్బా! 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 వాటెవర్ అయ్యా. వాటెవర్ యూ ఫీల్. ఐఎమ్ హ్యాపీ. వాట్ ఎల్స్? You are not paying anything. I'm whatever I'm sharing. If you want, you can listen. If you want, you can watch. Otherwise, don't watch. That's it. Leave about all of them, my dear friend. See, now we are in where we are. VA is equal to value of the equity. Let's let them. See, calculation of the future cash flows. Calculation of calculation of calculation of future cash flows. Calculation of future cash flows. Calculation of future cash flows. Calculate. What a frustration. Who is that guy? Why Swanti Boppana? Yashwanti Boppana. Yeah, I don't know anybody. Yashwanti Boppana. If somebody they knows to me, they can might have called me. No. Let me check my mobile. If anybody call me during the course of discussion. यार that Yashwanti something. यार Yeah. Who is that? Why, Mister? Somebody the frustrated and typed. Super. And we will try to protect him from penalty proceedings. Thank you, sir. Bye, sir. Time already 9:32. Disturbed Mr. Y. Yashwant Bopara 2864. I disturbed because of your words. I hurted. What is this language? If you don't want, you don't want watch. What is this? What nonsense. ఇంకా నయ్యం నాయనా దేవుడా నేనేదో పొలిటికల్ మీటింగో ఇంకో స్పీచ్ అయితే అమ్మలక్కలు తిట్టేవాళ్ళేమో జనాలు అరమ్మా బడవ సబ్జెక్ట్ అయితే ఎట్టుంది జీవితం ఆ, ఆ. సబ్జెక్ట్ అయితేనే జనాలు ఎట్లా చూపడుతున్నారే ఇంకేదన్నా మ్యాటర్ అయి ఉంటే ఇంకెంతలా తిడతారు వాళ్ళందరూ ఎలా భరిస్తున్నారో జనాలంతా అవుట్ స్టాండింగ్ లెట్ ఎంజాయ్ ఐ విల్ ఎంజాయ్ మై సెల్ఫ్ యూ విల్ ఎంజాయ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ see the calculation of the future cash flows EBITDA EBITDA less depreciation and amortization of NCC less depreciation and amortization less depreciation and amortization less depreciation and amortization NCC EBIT less tax less tax less tax no pact NOPAT, NOPAT, NOPAT. Add depreciation, net profit after tax. And NOPAT means add depreciation, add depreciation, less increase in working capital, less increase in working capital, less capital expenditure, less capital expenditure, FCLNV, sure, okay laba. Somebody called me. I am not responded. They felt bad. Capital expenditure FCLNV. ఒకసారి నాన్నకు ఫోన్ చేద్దాం. ఎందుకబ్బా డబ్బులు అవసరం టైమే చేస్తుంది ఫోన్ అవసరం. నేనైనా మనకు చేద్దాం. డబ్బులు చెప్తే ఫోన్ ఎవరు చేస్తారు బాబాయ్. అట్లా
The number you're calling is out of network coverage area. Please try later. మీరు కాల్ చేస్తున్న నంబర్ మా నెట్వర్క్ పరిధిలో లేదు. దయచేసి కొంత సమయం తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ప్రయత్నించండి. आपके द्वारा डायल किया गया नंबर नेटवर्क कवरेज क्षेत्र से बाहर है. कृपया कुछ समय पश्चात प्रयास करें.
అబ్బా సార్ తీసేయి టైం అయింది. ఎగ్జామ్. Somebody hurted you. Don't worry. Sriman, concentrate. Exam. Time. There is no time for you, Sriman. Concentrate. What a frustration, guy. Super. Okay. See, EBITDA less depreciation and amortization, EBIT will come. And thereafter you reduce the tax, then no PAT will come. And thereafter you add back the depreciation and less increase in working capital, less capital expenditure. Then the FC, future cash flows, a free cash flows will come. The future free cash flows will come. Those you can consider for your free cash flows calculation workings. Dear friend, the YouTube watch your. See, if you have any doubt, if you have any doubt, you please call me. My mobile number 9677205265. See, what I computed now is free cash flows for the firm. What? Free cash flows for the firm. Free cash flows for the firm. Free cash flows. Free cash flows for the firm. For the firm. Now, based on its net income, free cash flows of the firm is equal net income plus interest expense 1 minus tax plus depreciation plus capital expenditure minus change in non-cash working capital. Based on operating income or earnings before interest and tax, future cash flows of the firm is equal to EBIT into 1 minus tax plus depreciation minus or plus of the working capital expenditure plus of the changes of the non-cash working capital. So this you must understand while doing the calculation. My friend Mr. 𝒠𝒹𝓋𝑜𝒸𝓶 2864 channel, he frustrated. I don't know why. My dear friend, I given my mobile number. If you have a doubt, you could be call me. No, you can call me. No, I can respond. Right? You call me, I'll respond. Don't worry. Now time up. We don't want to waste time. We'll go run. See the future cash flows, free cash flows. To compute the free cash flows, we have different kinds of approach. The one approach which I deal now, there are other approaches is there we are going to deal now. Let's go to deal them. See, the first deal I'm going to deal that based on its net income, based on operating income, earning before interest and tax, based on earnings before interest, tax and depreciation and amortization is there. Now, almost this format will serve our purpose. Only we'll go for based on its net income only, we'll do some calculations. Based on its net income. Based on its net income. Based on its net income. FCFF is equal to FCFF is equal FCFF is equal to net income net income plus interest expense interest expenses into 1 minus tax, 1 minus tax plus depreciation, plus depreciation minus surplus capital expenditure, capital expenditure plus minus surplus change in non-cash working capital, change in change in non-cash working capital, change in non-cash, change in non-cash, change in non-cash working capital, change in non-cash working capital, change in non-cash working capital based on operating income or earning before interest and tax EBIT, FCFF is equal to EBIT into 1 minus tax rate plus depreciation plus or minus capital expenditure plus or minus changes in non-cash working capital based on earning before interest and tax, depreciation and amortization EBITDA. FCFF is equal to EBITDA minus 1 minus tax plus depreciation plus tax rate plus or minus capital expenditure plus or minus changes in non-cash working capital based on free cash flow to equity. Future cash flows to the firm is equal future cash flows of equity plus interest 1 minus tax of the principal, interest into 1 minus tax plus principal paid minus new debt issued plus preference dividend. This is based on free cash flow of the equity. Based on cash flows, future free cash flows is equal cash flow from operations plus interest 1 minus t plus or minus capital expenditure calculations of the future cash flows of the firm. See, there are various methods over there, my dear friend. We can compute any of those methods which you are feel and comfortable. Okay, let's you're a pakka Telugu fellow who talked there. Am I right? Who spoke there? Pakka Telugu fellow. He's not English fellow. Let's enjoy that. I'll take pause to dear friend. Don't worry. See, future calculation of the FCFE. There are different methods over there. One by one, we'll compute now. Method 1, calculation of the FCFF. Calculation of FCFF. Calculation of the future cash flow of the equity. Method 1. Method 1. If debt financing ratio is given, if debt to financing ratio is given, if debt financing ratio if debt financing ratio is given, EBITDA 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 less depreciation and amortization less depreciation and amortization less depreciation and amortization less depreciation and amortization. EBITDA EBIT EBITDA less interest then EBT will come less tax and then PAT will come. Then add depreciation into equity invested. Add depreciation add depreciation into percentage of equity invested. Equity invested the percentage of equity invested less increase in working capital into percentage of equity invested. Increase in working capital increase in working capital into percent of equity invested less capital expenditure into percentage of equity invested less capital expenditure capital capital expenditure into capital expenditure into percentage of equity invested